trainers, travelers, and battlers. You already know what it is. Jay Devin back at it with another video. As promised, we're going to be doing some regional cup practice against the no-handed bandit, the one, the only. Guys, again, go check him out. Give him some love on his channel. He did upload a couple days ago a vlog style video. He doesn't necessarily do Pokemon Go content all the time, which I kind of like to see some different individual stuff. So if you're into that, you're going to love his channel as well. Can't say that enough. Give him a shot. But going into these battles here, we were lucky to get rid of the Venusaur that quick with this Frostlass, and we got the Shadow Ball off as well on the Azumarill, so our investment kind of paid off. We didn't need a shield at that point because we got the Tentacruel coming in at this point, doing the super effective damage against the Azumarill, waiting for the next Pokemon to come in. So we're going to charge for him in a bit and build up that energy. Now, these are kind of off-meta choices. These aren't the type of Pokemon you necessarily want to go into regionals with if you're attending and if you qualified and or just got the invitation from leadership. But we're going to be going for these acid sprays against the Medicham because we don't want him to be getting so powered up from his power-up punches at the same time that we don't stand a chance. We aren't going to block it, though, because we do resist it at this point. We ended up actually winning on the tie. We both died at the same time, but we still had a Pokemon left, so we took the victory. Now, these battles are actually also still kind of outdated at this point. I really need to get into the habit of uploading and editing the day I actually do battles with people so that you can see where my mindset actually is in the meta. I'm sorry, I know that's kind of pointless, but, you know, at least you get to see these off-meta battles with Tentacruel as well. I tried to feature him a little bit. I feel like he's not getting enough love. Some people have included him in their lineups for regional cups that have already happened. I don't know if you guys are active on the Silph Arena subreddit or not. If you are not, go ahead and give it a look because that's a quick place to go check out what people are using to win without necessarily having to jump on YouTube and to, you know, sit down and watch a video for 10 or 15 minutes. So he had an off-meta pick there, but we had obviously the open. There's nothing he can do against us with the Bastiodon, but that's why I kind of like leading with Bastiodon, or at least I did before, because if they do not lead with Medicham, we're going to have a much higher chance of winning, essentially. Now, this still isn't the best matchup for us, as you guys know. If you don't already know, I'm sorry, Medicham's going to actually be dealing neutral damage to Skarmory because Skarmory is flying and steel typing, and fighting is super effective to steel typing, while flying is going to resist it, hence it's being neutral. Typically, Skarmory is going to win the matchup against Altaria, but we're at a disadvantage with our health at that point. But that doesn't even matter because we got the Bastiodon ready to come out to munch and crunch and get up that Stone Edge to take care of it. And that's going to be GG's here in a minute. As soon as it gets off this Dragon Pulse, we're just going to end it with some Smackdowns and take care of the next Pokemon that's going to be coming out. Yeah, Zatu's not really going to do much. I mean, that was just kind of the matchups. We had it going for us. He ended up bringing in 2 flying types against a Bastiodon. So that's kind of, I mean, it goes without saying we're going to take the cake on that. Now, at this point, I mean, when I made these, when I battled against the no-handed bandit, I really liked using Bastiodon. At this point now, when I'm recording and about to upload this video, I kind of don't. And the reason why, so I did some battles tonight against Reacts, who's in our area. He's one of the higher ranked players. He made some really good points about Bastiodon. The main matchups that Bastiodon is going to be very useful in are pretty much just Altaria. Now, Altaria doesn't really have a place in this meta, guys. The reason being he doesn't is because there's so much ice coverage between Azumarill as well as Medicham, potentially Frostlass for some other people, as well as Melmetal being a thing. And it's just, I mean, it has so many negative matchups with such some of the meta Pokemon that, you know, everybody's going to be using. I mean, Altaria does not have a good matchup against Skarmory, depending on shields. Altaria does not have a good matchup against Azumarill, period. It doesn't have a good matchup against Medicham, depending on shields, because Medicham has access to Ice Punch, which, you know, is going to be very, very bad news for Altaria being Dragon and Flying typing. So, Venusaur here has actually been a great choice for a lot of people. A couple of thoughts that I've had about Venusaur. Mine currently has, I don't know if I used them in this video, I might have, but mine currently I'm running Razor Leaf, Sludge Bomb, and Frenzy Plant at this time. I'm probably going to end up switching it to be Vine Whip. The reason I wanted to go in with the Razor Leaf is essentially because of just the sheer damage output that Razor Leaf is going to have to water type Pokemon such as Lantern. Lantern is going to be fairly common. I know Whiscash is going to be very high up there in the meta rankings, so that's one reason you're going to want to have grass coverage, because if somebody's going to be using a Whiscash consistently against you and they don't know how to switch and shield properly, then they're going to get destroyed, essentially, if you have that Razor Leaf and or even just the Vine Whip coverage, because Whiscash is going to be double weak to those grass-type charge moves because it is ground and water typing, which both are going to be taking super effective damage from Venusaur. And I prefer the Razor Leaf, or I did at least before when I first started using it, just because Razor Leaf is so busted in the first place and it does so much damage. But when you have that super effective and even the double super effective damage output, it's just nuts, guys. But I mean, you can see Altaria, I tried giving it a shot a couple of times. I mean, I felt kind of iffy on it in the first place because I know this is hands down literally the most open meta that we've had so far in the Silph arena. And there's so many things that Altaria is just going to, auto lose to. So I wanted to test it out, but I ended up not liking it. It's the same thing kind of for Frostlass here. I mean, some people have found some use with it. I have as well too. I mean, granted, Frostlass, even though it is part ice typing, it's going to resist the counter and the power-up punch because Ghost is immune to fighting type, so it's going to resist it. But it's a little squishy to begin with, so when Medicham gets off his power-up punches and he gets the the powered up with the counter, like it's too much damage. Frostlass can't even handle it. I mean, granted, Frostlass is going to be a great option against Venusaur and Tropius here. That goes without saying. But there's also other things that you could have on your team that can already handle those two. I mean, Medicham can handle Tropius, if it's going to get off an Ice Punch, depending on shields. Azumarill can even handle it, potentially, if it gets off an Ice Beam, depending on shields. Skarmory is going to be the ideal counter right now versus Venusaur, as well as Tropius, because it's extremely resistant to the Grass-type moves while dealing super effective damage back to both of them with its ideal moveset, being Air Slash and Sky Attack. You also, if you can afford it, you're also going to want to have Flash Cannon as the additional second charge move. That's going to provide better coverage against Pokemon that they might swap into, or you might even be at a disadvantage to because you're switch locked into the Skarmory. Flash Cannon might come in clutch. Even if it doesn't come in clutch, you can do a little more damage than you potentially could trying to use the Sky Attack on something. So that's one thing to consider. Now, this is the ideal open up. Again, Tentacruel, kind of sub-meta. I really don't think it's going to end up in my lineup. It is fun to use because it's kind of almost an ideal counter to Azumarill, because Azumarill is going to take super effective from poison no matter what. And we resist that. As you saw, the Play Rough's not very effective because that's a fairy type charge move, which is resisted by a poison type Pokemon. Now, the Metagross is kind of an interesting choice. We had Metagross being steel typing is going to resist the poison type fast and charge moves, but we had the Hydro Pump ready to go and he did not decide to block it. So I think we got a little lucky there. The match could have potentially gone different for him if he did not, or if he did block the Hydro Pump, but it is what it is. Maybe he didn't see it coming. I'm not sure. But here, obviously we have the Frostlass in our lineup. The reason I bring Frostlass sometimes to practice matches is because I'm just so scared of Tropius, guys. Oh, I hate Tropius with a passion. I despise it. I'm so salty over Tropius. I probably always will be. Tropius is my arch nemesis at this point. If there's a Pokemon that I hate the most, it's probably Tropius. A lot of people love it. I hate it. Opened up, he has the ideal counter for us, so we switched into the Tentacruel. At this point, he's been like, oh, okay, so my Azumarill does not do good against this Tentacruel, so he's going to be switching out. But he switches out to the Medicham, which I'm not too worried about either, because chances are he's probably going to have counter, power-up punch, as well as ice punch, which Tentacruel is going to resist all of those things. But this is another reason I'm really not going to be running Tentacruel at the end of the day. Even though we're going to resist everything Medicham can throw at us, Medicham's just super OP. If it gets those powered up counters off, it can still, win this matchup, even though we resist it. And even though Tentacruel's kind of tanky, like it just can't deal with it. That's why, Sableye right here is going to be a great, great, great option for the Nightmare Cup meta if you can invest into it, or if you already have. because he's going to be, one of the perfect counters to Medicham. Medicham cannot, it can kind of handle Sableye, depending on shields, but most of the time it's going to end up losing. Really a better direct answer, I guess, to Medicham is going to be Haunter. As you saw in the previous video, I mean, Haunter's extremely resistant to fighting type moves. It can actually, that's one of the Pokemon choices that can actually deal with the counter and the power up punches. But, you got to watch out for the Ice Punch and or Psychic potentially if he has those as coverage. Now, a wild card I've tested out. You're not going to see it in this video, but something I've tested out. I've seen some other people have some success with it too. Saw it on Zionic's stream the other day, as well as we had, goodness, what's his name? Valor Ash on the Elite Four TV channel. He had some great success using Gallade. Go check out that video if you guys haven't. But yeah, so what you want to use, if you're going to use Gallade, it's not necessarily a best choice. It's kind of another sub-meta pick, but it does have some great matchups. What you want to use is Confusion as the fast move, Leaf Blade as a charge move, as well as Close Combat as the additional charge move if you can afford a second one. But hands down, I think, in my opinion, you're going to want to have Leaf Blade. The reason being is because Confusion in the first place, okay? If they're running Haunter, Confusion is going to take Haunter out, and I want to say three times it gets it off. I don't know how many turns that is, Confusion, but is that a 2-turn move? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But that's like, in 6 turns, Confusion is going to get rid of Haunter, I believe. If it's not 6, then it might be 8. It might be 4 times of using Confusion, or 3, I'm not sure. But we might see that in one of these next videos. I recorded it, and that situation actually ended up happening against Frampty Pants. We lost pretty hard because, I was like, what? I want to see actually how much it takes. That's the point of the practice battles. I want to know how long Haunter can last against the Confusion. And that was a bad idea. So, but Confusion, can deal with part poison type Pokemon, such as namely, maybe Tentacruel. It could have some use against Tentacruel. But mostly what you want to use it against, obviously, is going to be right here, Medicham. So that's going to be good against Medicham. It'll still be dealing super effective damage, I believe, as well as against, Venusaur. Because Venusaur does take super effective from Psychic. It is part poison typing, so that's one thing to consider as well. But with its charge move, so Leaf Blade, you're going to want to be using that against Azumarill. I mean, that's the main reason to have the Leaf Blade in the first place, because if they end up swapping into the Azumarill and or you swap into the Gallade or something like that, then the Leaf Blade is going to do a ton of damage against the Azumarill, because it's a grass-type charge move. Obviously, Azumarill being part water typing will take super effective from it. One matchup you do not want to have if you're going to run Gallade is going to be Skarmory. Skarmory is going to destroy Gallade all the time, but that's why you potentially want to have Close Combat as the additional charge move, because if you get that off, depending on shields against the Skarmory, you can actually win that matchup. Close Combat's going to do a ton of damage, and it'll be neutral to Skarmory. So the main thing about Gallade is he is really squishy, especially if you're going to go up against a Sableye or a Haunter. Even though you're going to be doing a good bit of damage against Haunter, if they get off a Shadow Punch, depending on shields or a Shadow Ball, whatever moveset they have, you're probably gonna lose the matchup. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. If you're going to use Gallade, you need to be saving your shields for Gallade in your team of 3. So your other 2 Pokemon, I'd probably recommend something that's going to be tankier and can take some hits, such as I'd probably pair Gallade up with Azumarill, and then also potentially Skarmory. I'm going to say Skarmory because, Azumarill is going to be scared of grass types, and you're going to need Skarmory for that grass type coverage, because if they have a Venusaur, that takes out the Gallade and potentially might eat into the Azumarill. And if you are in a situation where you can switch out, then you're going to be able to switch out into the Skarm and take care of the grass type coverage. And even after that, the Skarm should be able to do enough damage in that situation where potentially if you built up enough energy on the Azumarill and you switch back into it, you can get off an Ice Beam, assuming that you are running Ice Beam at that time, and then the match could go, in your favor at that point. That's just kind of a scenario I ran in my head, a little bit of rambling there, but that's kind of my thoughts on if you're going to run Gallade. Just my basic thoughts. I haven't done much testing with it, but this is pretty much the end of the battles that we had against the No-Handed Bandit. We did some more, but again, I wanted to cut down the video a bit because it would have been way too long. The Bastiodon here did come in clutch for some victories, but I really doubt, guys, that I'm going to end up using it in my lineup at the end of the day. It just isn't really that useful, against the meta as a whole. And I want to do the best that I really can, in this regional, see what I can do. have some fun. If not, at least push up my ranking a little bit because we're pretty low. GG's to the battles, GG's to the video because it's over. Please subscribe if you feel my vibe. Most importantly, please make sure you have a good freaking day.